Badlands, running to Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building, and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. Today is Tuesday, joined by the one and only ghost of base, Patrick Henry Gordon. How you doing, brother?
I'm great, Brian. Man, wild week of stories just the past week. I mean, I feel like I say that every Tuesday, and it's definitely always true, but it just feels like time is being compressed and like the storylines are accelerating, and there's like this exponential growth in all the narratives, and it's causing a lot of people, and when I say people, a lot of like influencers, to adopt a side on a position on every issue, and interesting where a lot of them are falling. I think it's a very telling time, I think.
Yeah, this has been a phenomenal news week. I mean, there's just no shortage of stories to cover. I mean, mainly, this week thus far, it's been what's going on out in LA. I'm sure this weekend it'll escalate even further. We talked yesterday about the No Kings movement that somebody posted this on X, and I'm just going to show this real quick. Let me show you this real quick. So we shared this yesterday, and somebody had tagged me, and I apologize. I don't remember who you are. And I feel bad about that, but dude, check out all the partners that this No King organization have backing them for their massive protest this weekend. The ACLU, American Humanist Association, Bernie, the Burn Bros, some big names in here. And this is not organic. Like
not at all.
The level of organization it takes to get these types of, orgs all together to put this together. That's a massive list.
Sheesh. Look at that list, man.
That's huge, dude. And I'm telling you, man, I can't wait. Like, if there's one thing that I learned about the Doge and everything that took place and some of the things that they uncovered, I think they know where this is coming from.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, yeah. And when we follow the money, which is what we need to be doing, we need to be following the money at all times. That will tell the truth. That will tell the story every single time. I think we're going to figure a lot of things out. Last night, real quick, I don't know if we have any Epstein stories today, but last night I did the Robert Maxwell episode on the Book of Trump. And dude, not only was he literally created by the MI6, MI6 gave him millions of dollars to buy publishing companies in the 1950s so that he could go over to the Soviets and basically meet with their scientists, steal their scientific papers, give it to MI6, publish it through his publishing company. So they literally created him as a character, and then he was presented to the public as like this media mogul. But we learned that MI6 actually gave him all the money. That's public information. But then when he died in 1991 under mysterious circumstances, allegedly fell off his yacht and drowned in the Canary Islands, there was like widespread speculation that he was still alive, and that like conspiracy theories about whether or not he was murdered. Apparently his daughter, Ghislaine, believes he was murdered. you know, that could be a cover story. He could still be alive walking around somewhere. So it's like a replay. Epstein is literally a replay of Robert Maxwell.
Very interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm gonna have to check that episode out this afternoon. So, all right, folks. Before we get into today's stories, let's go ahead and check out our sponsors for today's program. And you guys have heard me talking a lot about this product over the last couple weeks. Well, the last few days at least. I'm absolutely in love with this product here. This is ChefIQ. Their wireless cooking sensor. This thing is absolutely awesome, and this barbecue season is underway. This is a product that every person should have. It makes barbecuing and cooking in general, grilling, absolutely seamless, and it does the work for you, man. You put the probe in, you tell it what you're cooking, how you want it cooked, and it tells you every step of the way how to prep everything, how to, when to flip the meat, when to take it off. It tells you everything for a perfect cook. I used it on Y-Chromes for the smoking with my chromies. I used it on baked potatoes, and they came out absolutely perfect. Alpha was talking about, Father's Day coming up, and he's going to be out there grilling. And I said, is that by choice, or is that because you want to do it? And he says, I want to do it. We know the men, that's our home, right? The barbecue grill, man. And no better way to expedite your grilling process and make it much simpler with ChefIQ and the remote cooking sensors. This is the world's smartest, simple to use cooking sensor, and they just announced a flash sale. You need to jump on this. Summer grilling season is here, and the ChefIQ Sense makes you a grill master. The perfect Father's Day gift. During this flash sale, you'll get 15% off. Visit chefiq.com and use promo code Badlands. Again, that's chefiq.com, promo code Badlands. And I cannot recommend that product enough right there, ladies and gentlemen. Fabulous.
Can't wait, dude. Can't wait for my kit to get here. I'm waiting for my kit, and then I'll report back. But yeah,
it's so good.
I'm impressed by what everyone else is saying. So I have high expectations.
Yeah, the app has recipes built into it with videos on how to do everything. So like you just open it up and there's like a 2-minute video on how to cook, whatever you want to make, and it's good stuff. So, before we get into the show, we do have a Badland boost here. Pull this up from JC. Says, thank you, Can. Always great work, JC. So appreciate that. If you guys want to support us this way, Badlands boost, 100% of the funds go to us directly, the creators. And you can go to badlandsmedia.tv/support to do that. So, all right. Let's jump into the news for today, and this is probably going to piss off the people, the communists over at the that platform with the little red logo. But it is what it is. We're still going to cover it. Not going to self-censor. From CNN, YouTube. If you guys hear me, this is from CNN. RFK Jr. removes all current members of CDC Vaccine Advisory Committee. RFK Jr. dismissed an expert panel, quote unquote expert, I'm adding the quotes, of vaccine advisors that has historically guided the federal government's vaccine recommendations, saying that the group is, quote, plagued with conflicts of interest. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say they're probably funded by Moderna, Pfizer, Big Pharma, all those people. But anyways, the entirety of the 17-member advisory committee on immunization practices, which advises the CDC on the schedule and required coverage of immunizations, will be retired and replaced with new members. Kennedy said that a number of the panel's members were, quote, last-minute appointees, end quote, of the Biden administration. Quote, without removing the current members, the current Trump administration would not have been able to appoint a majority of new members until 2028, he wrote. And that's a reoccurring theme. We've seen that with all of these advisory boards and, panels that the president gets to appoint throughout his tenure. And it seems like most of these were appointed last minute by the Biden administration in order to kind of subvert the Trump administration coming in. Thankfully, this time around, President Trump saw that all, come into head, and he's pretty much, shot that down. So one just dismissed ACIP member that said that they did not receive a termination notice until after Kennedy's op-ed published. Quote, I've never seen anything this damaging to public health happen in my lifetime. I'm shocked. It's pretty brazen. This will fundamentally destabilize vaccination in America. End quote. Yes, please.
Yeah, let's see the criminal. This is a great development. Let's see the criminal investigations now, because I think that these people have obviously collaborated in a really nefarious way to not only poison the public, but also poison the psychology, I think, of the public, and like turn people against each other, and kind of like a divide and conquer tactic.
Yeah. We're probably going to get nuked now, but that's okay from CommiTube. But, you know, it is what it is. Yesterday, we played the clip of Kathy Griffin claiming that the 2024 election was stolen without any evidence whatsoever. Don Lemon platformed her, gave her the platform on YouTube to say that. And as of right now, that video is still up. Nobody's been banned, none of that stuff. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out both ways here. But all right, on that note, let's go ahead and move on. We'll jump into the next story here. This was a couple leftover stories from yesterday that we didn't get to with Zach. From Fox News, Supreme Court rules Doge can access Social Security information. Speaking of election integrity, I think this is a big move in the positive direction for that. The ruling blocked a Lower Maryland court order that kept Doge from seeking certain Social Security information due to federal privacy laws. The data from the U.S. Social Security Administration includes Social Security numbers, medical information, citizenship records, key one right there, citizenship records, school records, and tax returns for millions of Americans and tens of millions of Americans who don't exist. I added that. Quote, we conclude that under the present circumstances, Social Security Administration may proceed to afford members of the Doge team access to the agency's records in question in order for those members to do their work, they said in an unsigned order. So again, this is a big move, I think, not just to cleaning up Social Security in general, which, you know, will hopefully save, I mean, it could potentially save billions of dollars, depending on how many of those millions were still receiving some sort of benefit. But most importantly, and I've talked about this quite a bit, Social Security is their database is what's used under HAVA to confirm citizenship for voters. And so if you have, you know, an excess of 10 million, 20 million, 30 million people on there, how many of those people have been registered to vote? How many of those people have actually voted? And how many of those people are just, you know, kind of, we see after election season, we see right before the election an inflation of the voter rolls, and then right after we see a deflation. And those people that were put on and taken off pretty much just dust in the wind. We can't track them anymore. And so I don't know, maybe this is a way that they're able to kind of get ahead of the game that they play with voter registration. So I'm all here for that.
Yeah, I mean, cleaning up the voter rolls, which is something that people got really excited about over the past couple of years, seems like it's treating the symptom, not the disease.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so while it's encouraging, it's like, again, this kind of goes back to like replacing the people, like the vaccine people, right? It's like you're treating the symptom, you're not treating the disease. But disease is a much deeper rot that, in that case, actually led to people dying, and that needs to be adjudicated immediately.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's a really good point. You know, the revolving door between bureaucrats and the lobbyists, and you know the companies that fund those lobbyists. You know, they sit on a board, they make 6 figures, 7 figures as kind of a hat tip and a thank you for their service to them, not to us, while they're in the bureaucracy. And I'm all for shutting that down. It's going to be a difficult task because, you know, like we said, everything we've seen going on, especially like you look at California, et cetera, that's the animal backed into the corner right now, realizing that the Trump administration is going for the throat, so to speak, and they're backed into a corner. And so here we go. Next story. We'll stay on the courts here for just a second. And by the way, guys, Ash is going to be joining us here probably around 11 a.m. So when Ash gets on here, we'll jump over. Also, be sure to check out Daily Herald today at 1 p.m. John's going to have Representative McCormick on to talk there. So is that your uncle?
I was going to say it's not this Representative McCormick. It's a different one. No relation. People always ask if I'm related to the Spice People, and I'm like, man, I wish.
Oh man, that'd be you probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. You'd probably be on a yacht somewhere in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, I probably would be like funding the riots in LA, right?
All right, let's jump into this story from CBS News. Appeals court allows Trump to ban AP from smaller spaces for now. Now, I've got two stories here on the media. This one I agree with. The next one I do not. But let's go ahead and jump into this one first. A federal appeals court is allowing the Trump White House to ban the Associated Press from the Oval Office and other restricted spaces for now in a ruling that blocked a lower court's ruling that claimed the ban was unconstitutional. Judge Gregory Katsas and Judge Naomi Rao wrote, quote, "The White House is likely to succeed on the merits of the case, because these restricted presidential spaces are not First Amendment for open private speech and discussion. The White House therefore retains discretion to determine, including on the basis of viewpoint, which journalists will be admitted. The White House has already assumed control of the White House press pool access and rotation so that wire outlets, including the AP, are not in spaces like Air Force One or the Oval Office as frequently as they once were. The AP says its news reporting reaches roughly 4 billion people daily and would no longer be allowed in places like the Oval Office and Air Force One as part of the press pool until the AP revised its influential style book to use the name Gulf of America instead of Gulf of Mexico. The style book is a writing and editing guide that's used by newspapers, magazines, and other media outlets throughout the country for topics from abbreviations to state names to describing ages to jargon used in different sports." Look, this is pretty tit for tat, battle here. That President Trump said, "Hey, I'm right on this one. You guys are wrong." If President Trump issues the decree that we are now to call it the Gulf of America, that's what it is. If you guys don't like that, change it in 2028 if you win, or if you win the fake elections. But so they're only limiting them to essentially the confined spaces where the president has discretion over who's allowed in or not. We're not allowed in. If the AP, see, this is the can of worms that they would open. If a court ruled that the AP has to be allowed into these places, then everybody would be allowed into these places. Badlands would have somebody in there. All of these, kind of rising networks would have people with that type of access, and it would just be impossible for the White House to be able to coordinate that. And so I'm all for this ruling. I'm a free speech absolutist, but this isn't a question of free speech here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think the free speech issue is I don't know if it's a battle that's only just beginning or where we stand in the process, but I'm watching the conversation unfold between the larger influencer accounts, and what's very concerning to me is that it's very clear that a lot of these people who have positioned themselves as the leaders of the populist leaders of MAGA do not support free speech. Actually, they only support free speech when it aligns with their politics, but they are more than prepared to shut down the free speech when it disagrees with them. And I think that is moral relativism, and it is a continuation of the problem that spun out of 9/11 from the neocons, the Republican Party.
Yeah, you see the truth there from President Trump on J6. June 6th, by the way, is now J6. I don't know if you knew that or not. We talked about this the other day. We'll get more into that here in just a second, but I do want to point out the one that I disagree with. This is a post here from Caroline Leavitt in response to Terry Moran with ABC, and Terry Moran put out on X, and he deleted this. And look, I don't agree with it at all. I think he's pretty dumb in his assessment here, but he has every right to say this. This is insane. He said the thing about Stephen Miller is not that he is the brains behind Trumpism. Yes, he is one of the people who conceptualizes the impulses of the Trumpist movement and translates them into policy, but that's not what's interesting about Miller. It's not brains, it's bile. Miller is a man who is richly endowed with the capacity for hatred. He is a world-class hater. You can see this just by looking at him, because you can see that his hatreds are his spiritual nourishment. He eats his hate. Trump is a world-class hater, but his hatred only a means to an end, typo, and that end is his own glorification. Somebody should not be tweeting at 12:06 a.m. because riddled with typos. That's his spiritual nourishment. Caroline Leavitt responded and said, last night in a since deleted post, so-called journalist Terry Moran went on a rampage against Stephen Miller and called President Trump a world-class hater. This is unhinged and unacceptable. We have reached out to ABC to inquire about how they plan to hold Terry accountable. That's the sentence that pisses me off. And I'm sorry, call it what it is. You got to be honest. You got to stand on your principles. For the press secretary to say that the White House reached out to ask ABC how they're going to hold him accountable. Okay. That's his own account. That's not ABC's account. Okay. I would hate if my X post, got back to either Badlands or Gateway Pundit and people said, hey, look at what this guy said on his personal X, where I have explicitly stated opinions are my own. Okay. My opinions are my own. To reach, and by the way, ABC has suspended him. I think I read that he's been at least temporarily suspended while they investigate this. That's absurd. There wasn't anything like bad in there. It's stupid, but I don't know, man. I'm not a fan of that move.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of actually agree with you on that. I think that if ABC is a private company, I mean, it's a publicly traded company, but part of a much larger conglomerate. If they want to hold somebody accountable who has put something online that is a problem, that presents problems for their business, that's their decision as a business, right? Yeah. But when you have the White House pursuing those efforts on behalf of a political agenda, whether it's a political agenda that we agree with or not, that's a problem. And that's the problem that we were all talking about during not only the Biden administration, but the Obama administration, right? And so we have to be consistent. This is the part where we all have to be consistent in our principles, and we can't change our tune just because we agree with the politics that are being deployed here. And again, MAGA has a really tough identity crisis ahead of it that it needs to wrestle with, and we are being wrestled back into the barn, so to speak. You're seeing all the Al Qaeda stuff. You're seeing all the Al Qaeda 9/11 rhetoric being revived, being thrown out there to scare everybody into giving up your rights, to scare everybody into not wanting to view the Middle East as potential partners. They're running the same playbook all over again, and it's the Republican Party doing it. And we have to be honest with ourselves about what it all means. And it's a much larger conversation than we can have right now, but it's all the same disease state that we need to discuss. It's in all these little stories are just symptoms of that disease.
Yeah. I see people in the chat are disagreeing with me, and that's fine. You're wrong. I'm telling you guys, you're wrong on this one. The White House reaching out and saying, what are you going to do about this guy tweeting that is a literal infringement on the First Amendment, period. Yes. Hard stop. There is no further discussion on that.
Yes, because the underlying principle there, the underlying thing that's happening, the implication behind that post or behind that message is if they don't do something about it, it might cost them in the future in terms of getting an exclusive interview with Trump, et cetera, like access to the White House. I mean, things that we accuse the Biden administration of doing might happen to ABC, and ABC would know as well as anybody because they're participated with that with the Biden administration. I am no ABC fan. It's a deep state, CIA run, Mossad run propaganda outlet. That's not the issue here. The issue isn't even what the guy said. The issue is the White House putting their thumb on the scale and saying, you better hold this guy accountable. That is contrary to the First Amendment. And the fact that the guy has now been suspended, I think it actually undermines the suspension. I think if they had just suspended him without the White House getting involved, that's fine. That's a business decision. Yeah, that's not the problem. The problem is not the guy getting suspended. The problem is the White House weighing in on it.
And I think we're going to see Moran turn around and sue both ABC and the White House. I really do. I think he's going to sue both of them, depending on what ABC does here. And I said the same thing when Ian Sams, the counsel for the Biden administration, and granted, I'd be more inclined to say something about that as opposed to the Trump administration, just given my political ideologies. But I said the same thing when Ian Sams sent the letter out telling people how to cover Joe Biden. I think it was something about Joe Biden's decline. I think it might have been when he wandered away during that parachute thing and with Maloney and all them, and they reeled him back in. I think it might have been that. But Sams was basically telling news outlets how to cover this. And, that's not that, that's influencing them, whereas influencing how they cover something, whereas this is influencing somebody not to say something like their own free speech. Both of them are wrong, guys. And that's plain and simple. You can disagree with it all you want, but you need to go back and read the First Amendment again. And I see people now coming out and saying that they do agree. I'm highlighting a couple people. Nuke, I'm sorry, bro. You're wrong on this one, dude.
Yeah. By the way, like Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, the individuals are allowed to express their contempt for what the guy posted. That's different.
Yeah.
That's
Totally, that they can say.
That's totally different. Like Donald Trump coming out and saying the guy's a scumbag. Stephen Miller coming out and saying the guy's a scumbag. That's totally different than the White House asking ABC, what are you going to do about this?
Right. That's the key right there, is asking them, what are you going to do about this? There's nothing that they should be saying, and publicly saying that makes it maybe even worse. But all right, let's move on. Let's just real quick, I want to cover this story out in Colombia. Did you see this story about the presidential candidate that got shot in the head? Oh, I probably should say, I mean, it's not that graphic, but
yeah, there's a lot of blood. I don't know if there's blood in this video, but like the aftermath photos, there's blood everywhere. So if that stuff makes you queasy, just close your eyes, whatever. For a few minutes.
You know what? We don't even need to show the video. It's pretty.
He was shot, I think, 3 times in the head, if I'm not mistaken. It was like,
I think it was just once. I think it was
once
just
I think he was shot 3 times, but once in the head. Let's read the story, see what it says.
Yeah, this is from Reuters. Surgery on Colombian Senator Uribe went well after shooting, wife says. Colombian Senator Miguel Uribe, a potential presidential contender, survived an initial operation for his injuries after being shot in Bogota on Saturday. According to his wife in the hospital treating him, he remains in intensive care. Uribe, 39, is a member of the opposition right-wing Democratic Center Party and was shot in the head during a campaign event in a public park in a Fontibon, I don't know how you say that, Fontibon neighborhood. A boy under 15 years of age was arrested after the shooting, the Attorney General's office said in a statement on Saturday, adding that he was carrying a 9mm Glock-type pistol. Uribe's father was president from 1978 to 1982, while his mother, journalist Diana Turbe, was kidnapped in 1990 by an armed group under the command of the late cartel leader Pablo Escobar. She was killed during a rescue operation in 1991. So I don't know anything about this guy's politics, but dude, I mean, the fact that his mom was kidnapped by the cartel in the early
CIA,
90s, that's pretty interesting.
Because Pablo Escobar 100% worked for the CIA, and that's a pretty easy thing to demonstrate. And my understanding of the guy is that he is like a nationalist populist. He is kind of like the Trump of Colombia. I'm not familiar with like his positions on all the issues, but at the very least, he's a populist candidate who connects with the people. And the people that I follow who do closely track political events in Colombia are expressing a lot of remorse because not only because the guy was shot, of course, but even if the guy recovers, the wound to his head, he's unlikely to make a full recovery. So he's probably out of politics, is my guess.
He's done.
And there doesn't seem to be another figure that at the moment that is going to step in and be like the populist guy. And so this is again why like the rhetoric and the what the media puts out, what the CIA puts out through its media partners is so dangerous, because then a 14-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid might take it upon himself to go do something like this, right? Because they're too stupid to they don't have the adult brain to be able to process all the information that that's being fed to them. And yeah, man, it's sad.
Yeah. PJ Corrigan says Glocks suck, Canncon. I knew somebody just gotta take a jab at me, man. Glocks are the most reliable handgun on the market. Not my favorite. Mm-hmm. My favorite is my FN 509, but my Glocks are pretty damn reliable.
Every firearm instructor and firearm dealer that I know, including my late father-in-law, who used to be an antique firearm dealer, said the same thing. Said that if you want something reliable, it's a Glock. It's something that's not going to jam. He's like, but that wasn't the handgun he wore around the house, like wore around the property when he was doing yard work, So,
yeah. All right, so let's get into some of our LA riot coverage. The story that won't go away. U.S. Attorney Bill Asaili says El Padillo Reyna can run, but he can't hide. He threw rocks at federal officers leaving command post in Paramount on Saturday, a brazen attack caught on film, and that could have resulted in deaths. Reyna, 40, is charged with assault on a federal officer and faces up to 8 years in prison if convicted. The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward. F around and find out we played the video. Excuse me, yesterday. I'll just pull it up here on the screen while we're waiting. We played the video yesterday, throwing rocks, effed around, and found out. I don't know how how they got him so quick. Are these people still stupid enough that they're doing this with their cell phones still in their pockets, not realizing that that's like a tracking device? It's a low jack for the feds to pick up on them. So whatever, man. Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
Agreed. Now this was interesting because we've talked about who's funding this. The Neville, what's his name? Neville Singa, whatever his name is. He's married to the Code Pink executive. A lot of people are saying that he had, he's the one funding this. I think there's a bunch of entities that are funding this, a bunch of NGOs, a bunch of the Act Blue beneficiaries, a bunch of USAID beneficiaries, federal government grants, all sorts of stuff that don't want that, well to be cut off. And so this is their, this is one of their last stands. This is going to be the summer of love. It's just get used to it. This isn't going to go away. The media is going to propagandize the crap out of this, make these little city block incidents that take place this coming weekend, make it seem like it's a major thing. It's going to happen. So, just keep your head low, stay safe. But check this out. They caught this on TV. This is a Fox affiliate, handing out expensive supplies to protesters.
So, I mean, that was quite a shot that we have there of these folks, and your photographer just gave us a great shot of the box that was left behind, which showed the brand of mask. I mean, it's not the kind of thing, thank you for seeing this there. It looks like a bionic shield is what that's called. I mean, that's not the kind of thing that you buy in bulk if you don't plan on doing something with it. And the fact that that's being handed out kind of like candy to everybody gives you an indication that these folks probably plan to be here for a while.
That last one, these folks plan to be here for a while. Nobody goes out and buys, a couple $1,000s worth of masks and everything.
Share my screen.
Yeah, I had that pulled up as well. Yeah.
95 bucks.
I've seen the price everywhere from 50 to 100, somewhere in that range right there. But, the number of these that they're going to be handing out, nobody does that. Nobody's like, hey, let me just go out and buy $500. I mean, okay, maybe people do that, but they're not people with good intentions. So they did get a clear picture of the guy that was driving that truck. So hopefully, they're able to figure out who that guy is and figure out what the hell he's doing. Who's funding him? Did he do that out of his own, goodwill, or did somebody pay him to do that? So,
dude, and by the way, everyone, we were doing this in 2020. In 2020, we were like, people were going through and tracking all the people who were being listed by the FBI as like wanted individuals. They were, people who were posting videos online. There are videos online of people, like crowds of people just like that, where guys were walking up and handing out cash and saying, all right, go get the supplies. Where is that stack of cash coming from that guy's walking up? Crisp dollar bills that look like he just got from the bank. Okay. So you arrest that guy handing out the cash, you look into his bank account, and then you figure out where the money came. Like, how did that money land in his bank account? And you're going to find, I think, if you follow this trail, that, the playbook is the exact same playbook that the United States has been running, that the CIA has been running in Eastern Europe and South America and Central America and Africa, in Southeast Asia for decades.
Mm-hmm.
It's Operation Gladio. I mean, it's regime change operations.
That's exactly. People don't understand when you say something like this is an operation, this is a psyop, psyact, whatever you want to call it. We're not saying every single person there is funded by this. All it takes is a handful of people. That's it. It's a handful of people to organize, a handful of people to instigate, a handful of people to, reach down to lower IQ individuals who are easily manipulated, influenced, and show them, hey, this is something we need to stand for. Come out here and have some fun, get some free sneakers, get some free TVs, whatever it may be. See what happens. And people will go out there and do it.
It's the equivalent of like being out on the open ocean and pouring like buckets of fish blood into the water, right? And drawing, like chumming the water, bringing all the sharks in, and then pushing somebody off the boat when all the sharks are there, and then the person is eaten by the sharks. That's what it is. They pollute the information battle space with propaganda that gets people angry, that gets them resentful, that gets them wanting change. And then all it takes is a catalyzing event, whether that's George Floyd being killed or all ICE rolling into town to do mass arrests of illegal immigrants, and they can get people out of their houses. And then all of a sudden, people are handing out cash, they're handing out masks, they're handing out bricks, and then you have useful idiots just responding to incentive, and they've already been programmed to do it. That's all it takes. It doesn't take any higher level of coordination at the ground level than that. And so that's why you have to figure out who are the people going out there and deploying the equipment, giving out the money, organizing the protests.
Yep. Here's a clip here, just very, very short clip. How they describe the protest is absolutely epic.
Large group of people. It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
So a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn. That he really just said that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so this is where it becomes very sticky, because based on like what we just said about the White House putting their thumb on the scale with ABC, at what point do you hold like the corporate media outlet that has the reach that these people have accountable for instigating the violence, for pouring the fish blood in the water to bring the sharks out, right? Like at what point do you hold them accountable for being complicit in a much larger operation to destabilize and destroy the country? And that's the attack vector. It's not the speech aspect. It's not the speech angle. It's the coordinated operation to get people out in the streets and then let them know that it's okay. It's okay to go back out there tomorrow. You can go back out there, like you're at your home right now in your bed, but get back up tomorrow, head right back out there, watch these cars burn. It's going to be fun.
Well, you remember when Maddow did that like a month ago?
Yeah.
Maddow had a segment on her show where she brought on the coordinator, the guy that was orchestrating the protest in DC. And she started that segment by saying, hey, tonight, eat your Wheaties. Maybe not have a couple drinks, because you need to be refreshed tomorrow, because we're ascending on Washington, DC. And, I'm summarizing broadly, but essentially saying, hey, we need to be there tomorrow. Everybody needs to organize and get out there, and we need to make our voices heard. I'm so sick and tired of these, like that No Kings group. If you go down to the bottom of their website, it says like, we stand for nonviolent protest. Please don't bring weapons of any sort, and don't push back on people, blah, blah, blah. Get the bleep out of here, man. You know exactly what you're doing. You're pouring fuel on a fire that's already burning. Okay. If there was no fire burning, you can pour all the fuel you want and it's not going to ignite. But once it's ignited and you continue to do that, you are pouring fuel on the fire, period, plain and simple. I mean, I'm all for it. Again, First Amendment absolutist. I absolutely understand it. But when you have an organization like that, that's backed by those NGOs that it's backed by, that's not organic. And they're doing that with malicious intention.
Yeah, and that again is why it's so important that we get to the first principles position on every single debate, and we don't get distracted by shiny objects. We don't get caught up in the emotion of a specific aspect of the issue. Don't let them trap you in the argument of should we be deporting this like this specific person, right? Follow the money, figure out who's organizing the protests, the names, the organizations, the individuals. Something tells me that if you follow that tentacle back to the octopus, and then you follow the tentacle of who is giving the media funding the media, who is giving them their talking points, something tells me that those two tentacles lead back to the same octopus. And that's how you can start building a criminal case against the people on television who are promoting this stuff. Not the speech angle. It's the collusion, collaboration, conspiracy angle.
Yep. CKLR says, congrats on the Panthers win, Canncon. Yeah, big win last night, man. They came out and I think the final score was 5-1. They absolutely crushed the Oilers.
Damn.
Last night.
Nice.
My wife and I went to the game, and I got to bring my niece and her boyfriend because we got screwed, man. We bought tickets, and I was going to sell them, and I thought I bought them at face value because we have season tickets, so We had the members only pre-sale, but the pre-sale was actually people that bought tickets already and are selling them for profit. And I didn't know that at the time. So I got screwed. I spent way too much money yesterday on that game. And then Thursday night, we're going and we're going to be 3 rows up off the glass. And I'm going to have my MAGA hat on. Those tickets we got at a good price. But I'm going to have my MAGA hat on. So keep your eyes on that game for me.
Was that game 3 last night?
Yeah, game 3. Game 4 is on Thursday. So, all right, let's keep moving with this. Sorry, CKLR threw me off on a tangent there. More mainstream media meltdown. I think Washington Free Beacon put this together. This is just absolutely epic. And this will segue perfectly into the next clip.
Trump immigration authorities launched a series of targeted raids throughout the city of Los Angeles today. And tonight, a massive protest is taking place outside the LA headquarters of ICE.
At this point, this has been very peaceful, Brian.
We are having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests.
We haven't seen any violence happening here.
There's some yelling going on, but it doesn't seem as kinetic.
I haven't seen anyone pull out a weapon.
You have a number of, it appears, peaceful protesters. We didn't see any weapons or sticks or anything.
There wasn't anything like a riot happening.
True peaceful protesters who believe in a cause, who are doing this the right way.
These are peaceful people that want to get their message across.
Just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn.
My message is keep protesting. Protest peacefully.
The reality is we see peaceful protests launching in Los Angeles.
There was no need to federalize troops.
These are people who are looking for work. These are not criminals. They're looking for work.
This is a manufactured crisis.
What did happen in 1992 was so different from what we're seeing now. I mean, that was a real riot.
I'm so grateful that we have a free press that is going to be able to tell us the story.
Great work by Washington Free Beacon putting that together. Oh, these people are just insane. These people cannot disappear fast enough from the airwaves. Like they're on their way out. Okay. The mainstream media is dying it used to be a slow, painful death, figuratively speaking, as an entirety, the entities. Now it's rapid. Nobody is buying that shit anymore. Nobody's buying.
What the world needs right now are the Anons, man. The people who were on the Q research boards in 2019 who were collaborating and going through that list of like the No Kings movement and figuring out who funds each one of those smaller groups, who's organizing the No Kings thing. You piece that whole map together and then you overlay it with with the media and their connections. And I bet you're going to find a lot of synchronicity.
I'm teaching myself right now. Well, I'm not teaching myself. I'm learning from, the YouTube AI experts, but I'm making AI agents that can track this stuff now. And
really?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'll send you the video on how to do it.
Like your coding stuff?
No. You don't need any coding. It's all plug and play. But you can use
send me that.
It's crazy, man.
That could be super dangerous in my hands if it's what you're describing.
I'll send it to you after the show, man. All right. So this is the video that I wanted to lead up to, because this is everything we saw right there is a repeat of 2020, right? The summer of love. Everything we saw, mostly peaceful, fiery, but mostly peaceful. The CNN headline, now it's gone into overdrive in 2025 rather. But this run right here pisses me off. Like, this one really pisses me off. Check this out.
What does your intel tell you about these people causing all the problems? Are they people ICE is trying to deport, or are they professional agitators?
The people that are causing the problem are professional agitators. They're insurrectionists. They're bad people. They should be in jail. Thank you.
Will you invoke the Insurrection Act?
It's like you queued him up, Priscilla. That word he used, they're insurrectionists. That I can't imagine that was an accident, because it seems as though that is the place that the White House is trying to get. And for the president, it's icing on the cake that he can do it in the state of California, because on a whole host of issues, he has had California Gavin Newsom in particular in his sights. The question he was asked was about Newsom daring Tom Homan to come and arrest Newsom. And the president responded, "I would do it." And then he said, "Gavin wants the publicity."
This is a very serious word that's being thrown around now, insurrection.
Now
That's
it's
a
very
rebellion of the states or people in the states against the federal government. That is not something to be trifled with. If, for example, to your point, the president were to invoke the Insurrection Act, I think we would have yet another legal morass. It would be another instance of the way that the White House is trying to declare emergencies or insurrections in order to unlock vast powers which most presidents don't have access to. More broadly, the immigration issue, that is the track that we're going down with this administration.
All right. Fatu, fuck all the way off with that. We went through 5 years of all of them calling American citizens at the Capitol. There were no fires, no cars were burned. You know, there was none of the destruction that we saw this weekend alone. And those were U.S. citizens protesting for redress of grievances regarding the 2020 election, the COVID lockdowns, and everything else that we're seeing right here. What we're watching right now, we all know. When President Trump says they're paid agitators, they're insurrectionists, he's not talking about necessarily the people on the ground. You can't be an insurrectionist if you're from outside, if you're not a U.S. citizen. That's just called an act of war, a foreign invasion. If you're a foreigner, the insurrectionists are the people that are funding this. And I think he's very deliberate, and he knows what he's talking about when he says paid agitators, insurrectionists. But for these people now to turn around and say, that's a dangerous word to use, fuck you. You literally stood in front of in the Capitol in the J6 sham committee and called thousands of Americans insurrectionists who did nothing wrong, and who there wasn't even any chaos there until they opened fire on them. You cannot dislike these people enough.
Okay, so Trump just told you what we just said. He told you these people are being paid. Which, if they're professional, that means they're being paid. That means that there's money. That means there's a money trail. That means we need to find the money trail. We need to track it down. I completely agree with everything you're saying. I agree with all your sentiments. Again, don't get swept up in the emotion of this. We already knew what these people were before we saw that news clip. We already knew that these people are paid propagandists, and their job is to do what they just did. That's what they're paid to do. They're not paid to report the news. They're not paid to tell the truth. Let the normies, let the people who don't track this stuff to the level that we do, let them get upset about all that, because I'm sure many of them are probably seeing that and having similar feelings to what you're feeling right now. Again, take all of that animus that you're feeling and allow it to animate you to build this web of money and connections, so that we can understand who the people are behind these organizations, because I bet you that there are going to be a lot of familiar names. And there's probably going to be a lot of other names that are going to align with events and places and people that we are familiar with. People are asking in the chat to share the link with everyone on how to create that thing. I would encourage you to do that too. I think that everyone should be working to figure out who is behind all of this. And the more that we can collaborate and share our findings, the quicker we're going to get to that.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it, because I think I watched it. I watched it. Oh, here it is.
You got it? Post it in the chat. And then throw it in the comments for people watching on replay.
There it is. Now there's a lot more to it. That'll get the ball rolling, and then once you watch that video, more will pop up. So I'm with you. I think President Trump knows exactly what's going on here. He demonstrated that when he went after the funding of all these, the federal funding of these NGOs through USAID, National Endowment, Institute for Peace, all over the place. And there's no question that we'll get to the bottom of it. My animus right now is towards these people in the media that are, that have called us insurrectionists for the last 4 or 5 years now. And now all of a sudden, when we actually witness something that is destructive, this ties back into the Summer of Love and the comparison with the J6 protest, in that, $2 billion across the country from the Summer of Love estimated, double digits of people that lost their lives in those events. People like Kyle Rittenhouse that got drugged through the ringer for trying to save his community and protect his community. And then you compare that with January 6th, and I'm telling you guys right now, we haven't even gotten to the bottom of January 6th, but just from what we already know, that was an entirely manufactured situation there. That was manufactured by a handful of officers in the Metropolitan Police Department and the U.S. Capitol Police Department, mainly Metropolitan, that opened fire on these people and gave them no recourse. They couldn't get out of the crowd that they were in. And so the only place they had to go was forward. When you're breathing in clouds of tear gas after standing around praying in a circle, and singing the national anthem and whatnot, when you throw tear gas into that, you're going to cause people to scramble for clean air. And that's what they did. Now you compare that to what we're doing here, and it's just absurd that now all of a sudden insurrection is like a very protected word, and you can only use that in certain situations. Piss off. And I want to highlight my point right here. Check this story out that just popped up today conveniently. I'm sure there was there was nothing deliberate about this. From Just the News, Biden administration used January 6th to artificially inflate domestic terrorism threat, declassified intel shows. Newly declassified intelligence shows that most of the reported rise in the number of domestic terrorism cases cited by the Biden administration as a basis for instituting a sweeping expansion of federal law enforcement was actually tied to January 6th. The declassified special analysis report by U.S. intelligence revealed that 61% of all alleged domestic terrorism related cases being investigated by the FBI were related to the Capitol riot. 78% of arrests allegedly tied to domestic terrorism in 2021 stemmed from January 6th. The Biden administration made as much political capital as possible out of the riot, calling it an insurrection and a horrific event of domestic terrorism. Jump down here. It says, based on their own figures, there would have been roughly 300 fewer domestic terrorism cases in 2021 than in 2020 if it weren't for the 2000 Capitol riot cases being dubbed domestic terrorism. So convenient reporting.
Yeah. That's let me build on that a little bit.
Go for it.
Please share my screen. This is a post I shared this last night on the Robert Maxwell show, because it's all connected to Maxwell, of course, and Epstein. This is a post from November 2023 that I posted. This is after John got that letter from, remember, NewsGuard sent the letters accusing Badlands of being a domestic terrorist organization, effectively because we were talking about election integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll just read you my post and then I'll show you the images. It says, according to, I was responding to Mike Benz, who actually DM'd me because I sent this to him, and he was asking me questions about the stuff that I was looking into. According to open source, he was posting about NewsGuard. According to open source financial disclosures, NewsGuard's lead investor is a guy named Jules Kroll, who invested $15 million during their first round of funding, about 30% of the company, according to disclosures. Kroll's primary organization listed is called K2 Integrity. According to financial disclosures, K2 Integrity is only invested in one company called Flashpoint. Flashpoint CEO is Josh Lefkowitz. By his own admission on his biography on the Flashpoint website, Josh claims to be an FBI informant who helps hunt, quote, domestic terrorist groups, end quote, with the FBI's senior management team. So here are the screenshots I took from Crunchybase, which is like a public financial disclosure site. Here's the NewsGuard, the number of investors, number of lead investors, 18 other investors. Jules Kroll is listed there. Here's Jules Kroll. His primary organization is K2 Integrity. That's because he sold many years ago his old company, Kroll Associates, for lots and lots of money. And here is the K2 Integrity page. They've only made 2 investments ever. Both investments were into Flashpoint. And then here's the Flashpoint website. Josh Lefkowitz, right here, he says, he has worked extensively with federal, state, and local authorities to track and analyze terrorist groups. Lefkowitz also served as a consultant to the FBI senior management team and worked for a top-tier global investment bank where he gained experience with Fortune 500 companies and ultra-high net worth individuals. It's important to understand that Jules Kroll is in Kroll Associates was known as the CIA of Wall Street. That was literally what they were called. And that's because they almost exclusively would hire people from the FBI, from the CIA, from that whole intelligence community. And they became the organization that Wall Street entities would come to dig up dirt on others, whatever you would need like an intelligence group for. That's what they were doing. And so now this guy, after selling that company many years ago for a big profit, he created K2 Integrity with his son, I think in 2009. And now K2 Integrity is a part of the blob that Mike Binns talks about. By the way, Kroll was directly involved in 9/11, directly involved in the security that led to 9/11, directly involved in the World Trade Center, like the security of the World Trade Center. He was one of the last people that Robert Maxwell met with in 1991. Maxwell went to him and said, I need your help. I think people are after me, like in Mossad and their network. And then a month later, he was dead. Kroll is intimately connected to all of this. And by the way, do you remember that Deutsche Bank case where that Esther Salas, the judge who was overseeing, it was a Deutsche Bank case where they were settling a $150 million settlement against some Epstein accusers. And then the judge that was working on the case, suddenly a gunman came to her house, shot her son in the head. And then one of the people involved in the case who used to work for Kroll was found suicided. Dan Hollander, I think was his name.
Was that the judge's kid that they posed as a FedEx guy? And
I don't remember the exact details, but Esther Salas, this was like 2 years ago. This was very recent, where Salas was overseeing this Deutsche Bank case. I can pull up her information here in a second if we want to look into it. But the point is that this is how all this stuff works. And when Mike Binns talks about the blob and he talks about USAID and that kind of money being funneled into these groups that are then branding organizations like ours as domestic terrorist organizations because of what we talk about on air. This guy, Josh Lefkowitz, is one of the pipe hitters that is creating those labels, doing that research. And he is like our counterpart working for the blob.
I want to show you something. Have you been following Ash's reporting on the Mike Lindell trial?
Yes, as much as I can. I've been pretty bogged down in research for shows the past like 2 or 3 days.
Read the third line there, number 33.
Email string regarding referral from K2 Intelligence. Yes, confidential. So there's K2 Integrity and then there's K2 Intelligence. Both of those companies are Jules Kroll's companies.
Yeah, I asked them Perplexity if they're the same. It says K2 Intelligence and Integrity are not separate entities. Rather, K2 Integrity is the new name and brand for what was formerly known as K2 Intelligence. The change reflects a merger and rebranding effort founded in 2009 by Jeremy Kroll and Jules Kroll, an investigative compliance and cyber defense services firm.
Yep.
So with everything you just said right there, why is there any relationship with Eric Coomer and them?
Mm-hmm.
That's
oh yeah, and they're at the heart of this whole like trying to go after people who talk about election integrity. It was Kroll and his lackeys doing that. By the way, you know who one of his other sons are? Jeremy Kroll is the one involved in all this stuff, but his other son is Nick Kroll, that famous actor.
Nick Kroll.
The guy, yeah, just pull his picture up. You'll know exactly who he is. He's very recognizable. But this is a big club. It's a big club.
Are you serious?
Yeah, pull him up.
That dude's so funny too.
I know. But this is his son.
Oh man,
he is funny, but that's his son. It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
Wow.
But Jules Kroll is, and he works for the people who allegedly killed Robert Maxwell and probably they did create Jeffrey Epstein, and I think they leveraged Ghislaine after her father was taken out. They leveraged her and basically said, all right, if you want to continue to live your lifestyle, you're going to work for us now, and you're going to be the handler for this degenerate scumbag who we can't trust. And we're going to give him access to planes and boats and islands and money in order to bring in powerful people and record him doing God knows what.
Damn, man. That's heartbreaking. Not that I was attached. I didn't even know who
it is. What it is. I know, man. But like that, reality is fake. Reality is fake. And Chris Paul is 100% right about that.
All right, let's get back into the riots here from Breitbart. Trump sends Marines to support California's National Guard during riots. We talked about this, yesterday. They were on standby. They have now been activated and deployed. 700 Marines from 2-7, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. Hegseth shared this out, Secretary of Defense. Due to increased threats to federal law enforcement officers in federal buildings. Approximately 700 active duty U.S. Marines from Camp Pendleton are being deployed to Los Angeles to restore order. I wish he would have got that right. It's not Camp Pendleton. It's 29 Palms. If it's 27, which the Northcom statement says that it's 27. So Northern Command has activated the Marine Infantry Battalion that was placed in an alert status over the weekend. Approximately 700 Marines with 27 will seamlessly integrate with the Title 10 forces under Task Force 51, who are protecting federal personnel and federal property. Task Force 51 is a U.S. Army North's contingency command post, provides a rapidly deployable capability in response to Homeland Defense and Homeland Security operations. Task Force 51 is comprised of approximately 2,100 National Guard soldiers in a Title 10 status and 700 active duty Marines. 51 forces have been trained in de-escalation, crowd control, and standing rules for the use of force. So before, you're going to start seeing meltdowns from the mainstream media about, posse comitatus and everything else. I responded to Hegseth's post with posse come and tap that ass, because that's what Marines are about to do. They're about to go in there, and President Trump said, don't spit. If you spit, you get hit, or something along those lines. If you spit, you're going to get hit, and we'll hit a lot harder than you can spit. But these are Marines that are trained in this. They're it's not like they're going in there with, door kicking and clearing rooms and, all that stuff. They're going in there as a force that understands what their mission is. They understand that they're going to be dealing with some U.S. citizens, and they're not going to just go in there and wreak havoc. However, fuck around and find out, man.
Yeah, I mean, Chris has been tracking this LA stuff for a while, ever since the fires, and I'm sure longer than that. But he's been kind of right on top of it, and his speculation has been that Trump did something to LA. Like Trump, those videos that he plays of Trump saying, I invaded LA. Like I attacked LA. I had to invade LA. And then I don't know if you caught DPH on Saturday, but the videos that his friend had filmed and sent to him driving through LA and like trying to go to those areas that are still not accessible. And there's just there's military Humvees, military police Humvees everywhere, and like keeping people. It's the military keeping people out of these areas. It's not the LAPD. Or like the sheriff's office. It's the military police. So the military's been there for longer than just these riots. What they're doing there, I can't say, but I think Chris is right on when he says that there is something happening here that is bigger than just these fires and bigger than just these riots, and it all seems to be connected.
Very interesting. We've been covering that, relatively close, especially when it was going on. And we just talked yesterday about one building permit's been approved by California. President Trump yesterday said all the federal permits are approved. Everything's has gone through, but something's holding them up in LA, and Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom are shit in the bed. So I don't know. Interesting. Gavin Newsom is now suing President Trump. It says California Governor Newsom suing Trump over National Guard deployment. That's good. Make him expend the $53 million that he set aside to push back on President Trump. Make him spend it on this, because he's going to lose this one, period. He's going to lose this one. President Trump is absolutely within his authority to do what he's doing. Says Gavin Newsom said the state is suing the Trump administration, claiming that President Donald Trump illegally federalized the National Guard to confront protesters in LA. The clashes between protesters and law enforcement, quote, is exactly what Donald Trump wanted, Newsom wrote on social media. He flamed the fires and illegally acted to federalize the National Guard. The order he signed doesn't just apply to California. It will allow him to go into any state and do the same thing. So we're suing him. California Attorney General Rob Bonta said that the state's sovereignty was, quote unquote, trampled by President Donald Trump when he ordered the Guard troops to the immigration protests. Jump down here, and I love this. The Attorney General told reporters this was the first time that the Guard has been deployed without a governor's permission since 1965. Lyndon B. Johnson activated troops during the civil rights demonstrations in Alabama. So Bonta is okay with apparently, using the fact that LBJ did this back in 65 against U.S. citizens, all of them U.S. citizens, and now all of a sudden he has a problem with them doing it in Los Angeles against illegals after a foreign invasion. I mean, this is just absurd, and let him let them die on this hill, man. If Democrats really want to die on this hill, then let them. You know, I'll let you comment. Then I got a couple videos to back that up.
Yeah, the Newsom thing is so funny. Burning Bright's been covering this a bit, but he's calling it our boy New now. And I don't think that means necessarily that. I don't think it means at all that, or implies that Newsom is like working for Trump or anything. I think that doesn't need to be the case. And I think we need to kind of like push those ideas of like white hat, black hat. Let's just kind of set that all aside. It's about incentive structure, responding to incentives. Newsom's coming out and saying, arrest me, arrest me, arrest me, arrest me. Why would he be saying that? Well, he saw what it did to Trump's poll numbers a year ago when they arrested Trump. So like that would be the incentive he's responding to. You arrest me, you turn me into a martyr, and I will win any election in California that I ever run for, like win the election. I will have the public mandate among all the bleeding hearts in California and across the country, frankly, to run for president. That's how you get Newsom, if you have a deep state, to run for president, or have the Trump administration arrest him, turn him into a martyr. He's now talking about a federal tax revolt where California is no longer going to pay taxes to the federal government. Again, this is all grandstanding, and I think it's designed to bait Trump into, taking action against Newsom. I mean, we saw the video where he said, I would arrest him. That's Newsom. They're dangling a carrot in front of Newsom, which is, we're going to arrest you, turn you into a martyr, and that's going to make you like the front runner to run for president against whoever comes out in 2028. It's just incentive structures that they're responding to, and that's how you do game theory. And like, if you can understand what the motivations are of these people, then you can dangle the carrot and lead them right off the cliff.
You know, I used to think, until these riots, I used to think that Newsom would probably be the best hope that the Democrats could go for, because it's a shiny object. He's a, charismatic guy in their eyes, not in ours. I think he's a slime ball. But to them, he's smooth talking, whatever. By the way, the Antonio Brown memes right now are absolutely effing epic. Have you seen these?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go there.
Yeah. Well, the Antonio Brown, who is a big MAGA supporter, he showed up at the Butler 2.0 rally and came out full-throated Trump supporter, MAGA supporter. He's trying to bridge the racial divide. I think he's trying to bridge that, which huge hat tipped him for doing that. He's come out and said that claims that he's been having an affair with Newsom's wife.
He's a little more vulgar than that.
Yeah, I'm saying it very, very. I'm saying the PG version of it, but yeah, that he's been putting out memes of himself, saying that he's been having an affair with Newsom's wife, and it's funny. I mean, this is the stuff. This is like meme warfare. This is mimetic warfare, and I think AB is pretty good at it.
AB84 on X, and I'll just leave it at that. Just go look at some of the memes, and the dude is ruthless.
Probably the greatest wide receiver of all time in the NFL, probably.
No way. Not even close. Not even close.
Please. We'll have that discussion another time. But
Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Chris Carter.
Yeah. I mean, they played in an era where the rules were different. The rules didn't favor the wide receivers as much. So you can make those arguments for sure.
He's top 10. He's top 10. All right.
Yeah. What's the status with Ash? Because do we want to do? Is she here? Do we want to do geopolitics before she gets here?
Yeah. Hold on. I got well, I was gonna play Chris Murphy. I'll just pull it up on screen. I won't play it. Chris Murphy. By the way, Mika Brzezinski back in the news. I thought they were off air, to be honest with you. It's been like 3 or 4 months since I've seen a Scarborough or Mika clip. So Chris Murphy melting down, saying, hey, we need more of these protests. Just try and be peaceful, guys. Try and be peaceful. Fetterman came out. I unapologetically stand for free speech, peaceful demonstrations, and immigration. But this is not that. This is anarchy and true chaos. My party loses the moral high ground when we refuse to condemn setting cars on fire, destroying buildings, and assaulting law enforcement. I don't know which Fetterman that is, but hey, welcome to the party. The Elon Musk-Trump feud seems to be settling as Elon Musk reposted on X, or posted on X, a Donald Trump truth, which is kind of interesting. The owner of X posting a truth post on his platform. And then I love this clip right here. Just a very brief clip, and then I'll hand it over. If you guys have watched, when we talked about what went on in Ohio, with the cats and the dogs and all that stuff, we talked about the slave trade, right? Me and Chris have talked about it. I think you and I have talked about it. Finally, we have an MSNBC host or whatever you want to call them, affiliate, come on and say the quiet part out loud. Check this out.
And then the second thing, this reminds me historically of it's not a clear analogy, but when the nation, when these political factions divided the nation in between slaveholders and slave catchers, when they made everybody with the fugitive slave law, all of us had to, if someone escaped, all of us had to return that particular piece of property to these folk.
Do you see what he's saying there?
What's he saying?
That this migrant invasion is a slave trade. That's what we've been saying the whole time. So now you look at that analogy and he has to make sure that he says it's not a clear analogy because he realizes the retardation of what he just said or what he was about to say. We've been saying this all along. The CHNV, the Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela, temporary protected status, moving these people all around the country into small little ghettos, so to speak, that are predominantly their own nationality, their own ethnic origin. They all live in these little communities. They go to work at their factories for pennies on the dollar compared to what American citizens will be paid, and they just they go about their lives doing that kind of stuff, and that is it's a slave trade. It's essentially a quote unquote legal, because I don't think it is. It's a legal slave trade, and now this guy's saying that there's slave holders and slave catchers. Well, we're obviously the ones that are trying to get these people and deport them to their country. So does that make Democrats the slave holders in this situation? That's not a good look, man. That's not a good look, because that's a repeat of 1860, by the way.
Interesting. That is an interesting. A lot of reruns, man. The reruns are pretty funny.
Oh man, I did have one more. We still gotta wait. I don't want to jump into geopolitics until Ash gets here. So Ash, if you're listening, hello. She's parking. She texted me a minute ago. I could cover this story real quick. This one's going to show
We're probably not going to have time for geopolitics then, but that's okay.
All right, go ahead and I'll hand it over to you, man.
Well, if she's about to jump on, we probably only have time for like one or two stories, but I think let's just consolidate.
Yeah, I'm just going to text her and we'll
So I think what we'll do is let's just cover like the three big stories I think in Israel, and then we can talk and then we'll just leave it at Israel today, and we won't do Russia or Africa. So Trump and Netanyahu had a let me see, share this one. Had a Iran phone call yesterday to talk about Iran. Netanyahu wants to strike Iran. Trump told him absolutely not. Let's just read the. I'm sorry. Let's do this one. Damn it. These archives, man, they never stay loaded. You always have to reload them. All right. So Israel, 4 Israeli soldiers killed in Khan Yunis. Why is it talking about Israeli soldiers? And the way that they do this, the way they do their little feed where it gives you this blog instead of the actual. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump spoke on Monday amid growing tension over Iran's expected rejection of the latest American proposal and the ongoing nuclear negotiations. Tehran is likely to oppose the deal primarily over Washington's demand for a complete halt to uranium enrichment, and is expected to submit a counteroffer in the coming days. Following the call, Netanyahu convened a closed-door security meeting focused on the Iranian issue. Israeli officials have been intensively discussing potential responses should talks between Washington and Tehran collapse, with the option of a military strike on Iran reportedly remaining on the table. So then we jump to
the selfie yacht.
What the heck happened? Dude, it's like Haaretz just, here it is. Israel making preparations for Iran strike as Trump tells Netanyahu to forego an offensive. Amid difficulties in U.S.-Iran negotiations over a nuclear deal, Israel is advancing preparations for a strike in Iran, as well as preparing to defend against a possible Iranian counterattack. However, a source involved in the talks between U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said on Tuesday that Trump told Netanyahu to drop the subject of a military strike against Iranian nuclear reactors from the public discourse, and that the prime minister will not get a green light to conduct such an attack in the near future. The source added that the prime minister asked the White House to end negotiations on a nuclear deal with Iran. Meetings on the matter have taken place between Israeli defense officials and their American counterparts. Israeli defense officials say that that some politicians are exploiting the tensions over the Iranian issue for their own purposes, but add that the army continues to prepare for any decision that will be made. This is coinciding with a number of things that are happening over there. One is that it was revealed on Friday, and I talked about this on my geopolitics show, that Netanyahu is now funding or arming ISIS, and that is right here. Israel providing guns to Gaza gang to bolster opposition to Hamas. The TLDR on this, I want to save time, is the former defense minister in 2019. His name is Lieberman. I've mentioned him before. He was Netanyahu's defense minister. He resigned from office when he learned that Netanyahu was walking briefcases full of cash into Gaza to give to Hamas. We've covered that before. This same guy gave an interview last week where he explained that he's learned that Netanyahu is giving guns now to this crime family. Abu Shubab is the name of the family, and or the name of the patriarch of the family, and that this family is fighting Hamas. And what Lieberman says, and what others have said, Yair Lapid and other, I've seen Barack Ravid like boost or amplify these assertions, is that Abu Shubab is aligned with the Islamic State. So they're ISIS. They're aligned with ISIS fighters. Netanyahu then came out with a video. He posted it to X in Hebrew where he's explaining. So he literally says, "So what? So what if I'm funding these people? It's bad for Hamas. It's causing infighting in Gaza. You now have multiple gangs fighting each other for control of Gaza. This is a good thing. This is a positive thing." That's an amazing development. I mean, for Netanyahu to admit that he's giving guns to these people. Here it is. The group in question, which is sometimes described as a militia and sometimes a criminal gang, is led by Yasser Abu Shubab, a member of a large clan in southern Gaza. It has been linked in the past to smuggling operations with Egyptian jihadist groups, but was not immediately clear why Lieberman branded it as linked to the Islamic State. His gang has been documented in recent days operating in an area near the Karim Shalom border, crossing under Israeli military control. In the footage, which was published online by Abu Shubab, members of the group can be seen wearing military-style uniforms with the Palestinian flag and the words counterterrorism mechanism emblazoned on it. So what Netanyahu is now trying to spin it as is he's saying that these people are actually being backed by Abbas in the West Bank. Abbas and the West Bank have not come out and confirmed any of that. So I don't think that any of that's true. What we do have is Abbas in a first condemning the Hamas October 7th attack. They're saying this is the first. I've actually seen him do that before. This is a letter that he sent to the Saudis and the Egyptians and the French. He says, quote, "What Hamas did on October 7th in killing and taking civilian hostages is unacceptable and condemnable, and Hamas is to immediately release all hostages and captives." I think the media is lying here when they say this is the first time he's done this. I've seen him publicly make statements that condemn Hamas. You then also have Huckabee is in a meeting with the Haredi MKs, those are the congressmen in the Knesset, in a bid to prevent the coalition's fail. He denies it. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee has reportedly been meeting with ultra-Orthodox coalition members as part of efforts to prevent Prime Minister Netanyahu's government from collapsing over stalled legislation to enshrine broad exemptions from mandatory military service for the Haredi community, the Orthodox community. The TLDR here is that we had a Supreme Court case last summer where the Supreme Court heard whether this practice that's been in place for 75 years of exempting the Orthodox community from military service, conscription, was legitimate. And they said, based on the way that the laws in the Constitution were set up, it was not codified yet into law. And so as of right now, the Orthodox kids are required to serve 2 years in the IDF, which is what all the IDF leadership want because they're short on troops. Netanyahu has not gone that direction yet. He hasn't implemented that yet. But there's a push now to codify that among the Haredi community, to codify that in the Knesset, to codify the exemption into law so that Orthodox 18-year-olds are not required to serve in the IDF. These are the people, by the way, who are the most ardent supporters of a greater war to establish greater Israel. They just don't want to fight it. They want everyone else to fight it. So now, because of that, because of the pushback against that law being codified and Netanyahu not giving his full-throated support to endorse it, the Haredi community is saying, we're going to abolish the government. We're going to pull Smotrich and Ben-Gvir out of the cabinet. They're going to resign. Your government's going to collapse. New elections will be set up in 4 months. And there's no chance that Netanyahu is going to win those elections. And to that point, you have Lapid welcomes U.S. envoy's clarification. He's not meddling in U.S. politics. So Yair Lapid, grateful to Ambassador Huckabee for an important statement that he is not and will not get involved in the coalition crisis here in Israel. Huckabee is a great friend of Israel, and we have no doubt about his objectivity and integrity. Thank you, Mike. So Lapid is trying to get the government to collapse so that he can run in the in this upcoming election. And then finally, you have these two former Israeli army chiefs clash over leadership of an anti-Netanyahu party. Here we have Benny Gantz coming in, throwing his hat into the ring. He's not in the Knesset right now, but it's looking like he's going to try to run against this other guy, Eisenkot, to be one of these potential candidates in the upcoming election. Last story I'll run is this. This is horrifying, but we have sadistic rituals. We have survivors testified to Knesset last Friday about childhood sexual abuse network and Israeli religious ceremonies. The women described years of abuse, including rape and torture, masked as spiritual rituals, as well as systemic silence and neglect from authorities. As the Knesset members listened to the survivors' testimony, a number appeared visibly shaken. And I will just point out that their testimonies, which also indicate repeated neglect from authorities, are part of a disturbing pattern documented by journalists, trauma experts, and NGO leaders. This woman says, "You have no idea what ritual abuse is." One of the victims told committee members, "The human brain cannot process it. You cannot imagine what it is like to program a 3-year-old girl through rape and sadism so that they can do whatever they want without anyone knowing." So they are talking about 3-year-olds being tortured, being raped. And this is in the ultra-Orthodox community, the Haredi, the same people who are arguing about this exemption, who want greater Israel, but don't want their kids serving in the army that's going to deliver that empire. And again, this kind of goes back to my underlying thesis that I think all of these dynamics in Israel have now been pitted against one another. I think Trump's the one who set this all up. It all goes back to Netanyahu's charges from 2019, which I think Trump, along with Sheldon Adelson, facilitated in getting those brought against Netanyahu. Netanyahu is now totally leveraged. What does he do here? If he doesn't do a war with Iran, he's going to lose support of the Zionists. If he doesn't do the conscription exemption, he's going to lose support of the Haredi, and his government's going to collapse. And then he's been exposed now as giving guns to ISIS in Gaza. So on top of all that, you have a new report from this morning. Netanyahu approved major deals between top Israeli defense companies in Qatar. You have everyone screaming in the Canncon sphere about Qatar being the real evil behind everything in the world. It's not the Jews. It's not the Haredi. It's not the Israel. It's Qatar. And now Netanyahu has been exposed as giving Qatar, the top Israeli defense company, contracts. He is, any which way you cut it, it's like his back is up against the wall. The only thing that's going to galvanize support behind him again is a false flag attack, which is what I expect to happen. So there are a lot of other interesting things that are happening in Israel, but maybe we'll do a coverage of that another time. So
I'll flag that right there. June 10th at the 125 mark. Gordon's predicting the false flag. He's been right on many, many, many occasions. So I will keep that one. Couple questions for you. First, for the Abbas story, how parallel is this in terms of, what Netanyahu did with Fatah and Hamas? And is this, do you think that the gang, the CTM gang, whatever you want to call it, counterterrorism, whatever the M stands for, whatever, do Do you think that could end up rising to the level of like a Hamas to perpetuate the cycle that they've had?
Yeah, well, I mean, so if you play that all out, if you game out what this is exactly what he did with Hamas. He was like, if we want to take over Gaza, we have to give Hamas money, we have to give them weapons, we have to help them take control and present a legitimate, credible threat that we can then justify sending the IDF into Gaza and annexing it. That was the whole point. What he's doing now is basically imagine if the Bloods took over Chicago. This is the equivalent of the U.S. government giving guns to the Crips to go fight the Bloods. Yeah, you might wipe out the Bloods, but then the Crips are just going to take over Chicago. So that's what he's saying it's a good thing because it's destabilizing Gaza politics and it's pushing Hamas out, but you're not replacing them with something better. Remember, he shut down the meeting that was supposed to happen 2 weeks ago in Ramallah in the West Bank between all of the Arab prime ministers. All the Arab prime ministers were going to go to Ramallah and figure out how to get rid of Hamas from inside the Arab community. And Netanyahu said, no, you're not allowed to have that meeting. So he doesn't want a peaceful solution with Hamas. He wants Hamas to be replaced by another armed gang that he can then go fight later in the future. So that's their strategy. By the way, in Africa, you have Mali and Russia accusing Ukraine and the United States of funding ISIS there. They're saying the money that the U.S. are sending to Ukraine, these are old allegations, but they're now resurfacing, they're redirecting that money to Mali and Burkina Faso and Niger to fund ISIS to overthrow those governments. So ISIS is now the good guy, according to the central narrative. Let's see if Canncon bites on that and starts supporting ISIS, because I think we're going to see at least some of them do that.
And one other question, the Haredi, when you describe them, the exempt, well, not anymore, but exempt from conscription, ritualistic abuse. Is this where, the deep state, the kind of the Canncon of Israel, is this where they go to hide, like to get out of the conscription? It just sounds like a cover. Like you say, oh yeah, I'm an Orthodox, Haredi Jew, whatever it's called, and you just hide there. I don't know. Just
that's interesting. I mean, like for example, Netanyahu's son Yair Netanyahu he's like 33 years old. He's been living in Miami this whole time. He's an aspiring influencer podcaster. He's actually scheduled to go speak at CPAC in Hungary this month. He has not returned home to serve in the IDF, as every other able-bodied 20-something, 30-something-year-old has been required to do, and the IDF hates him because of that, because they're like, your father is sending us into battle, you should be here fighting with us, where are you? Oh, he's off becoming an influencer on social media. So, yes and no. It's like, I think the elites, they find other ways around that, but yeah, the Haredi, remember, is only 250 years old. Orthodox Judaism was created in the 1770s. It's the same age as the United States, and it comes from Ukraine. And it is more related to the Kabbalah, as I understand it, than it is to the Torah. They actually don't even really care much about the Torah. They care way more about the Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, and the Talmud than they do about the Torah. And that's what the Haredi people will tell you. Like, I've seen men on the street interviews where they ask them, these are Jews asking other Jews, do you learn about the Torah, like the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament in your studies? And they're like, nah, not really. Like, it's really more about the Talmud and the oral Torah and the Kabbalah, the Zohar. So it's that all of that stuff, the Jewish mysticism stuff, which I've written about for the past year plus, does have like sex magic as part of it, like back in the day, 200 plus years ago. And so it does seem like it's a form of Satanism, in my opinion.
Isn't the Talmud, or is it Talmudic leaders that teach that Jesus Christ is burning in a pit of?
Yeah. The Talmud was codified, like written down in like the 5th century, like 400 years after Jesus died. And what they claim is that when Moses received the 10 Commandments, God also gave him a list of oral laws that he told him not to write down. And they maintained this oral tradition for hundreds of years until they decided to write it down. And one of the things that God told Moses, as I understand it, is that in the future, there will be a street whore who will have a son, and she will claim her son is the son of God, and that she was a virgin, but she was really a street whore, and that her son will grow up to become like claim to be the Messiah, but he's actually one of the greatest heretics of all time. And as a punishment, I will condemn him to an eternity of boiling in a pit of excrement in hell. That's how I understand it's written in the Talmud, and that is Rabbinic Judaism. You can go look up what Rabbinic Judaism is. It was founded in the 5th century, 400 years after Jesus. And as I understand it, it was the descendants of the Pharisees, the people who rejected Christ and walked away and said, we are not following Christ. Most of the Jews did. The tribes of Israel did. And so the Pharisees, like descendants, created this new form of Judaism called Rabbinic Judaism. And that's where the Talmud. So they call it the oral Torah, and they often will just call it Torah, but they're referring to the oral Torah, not the written Torah. Two different things.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. That's all my questions.
Yeah. No. Great questions. And it's a sticky situation. But if you look at where all of these people come from, Ben Smotrich, Ben Gvir, Ben Shapiro, all of them come from the Orthodox community. They all consider them Orthodox Judaism. All right. And there's like different, I suppose there's different levels to it. I mean, there's Haredi, there's Hasidic is also considered part of the Haredi. But their whole belief system, the Orthodox belief system, the Haredi belief system is isolationism. They should be isolated from the rest of the world, and they should basically be exclusionary and not allow anybody to come in and live with them. That is like their core belief structure. It's different from what Netanyahu comes from. Netanyahu comes from the response to that in the 1770s, which was we should integrate into European society, and we should live alongside the Christians, and basically figure out how to work together with them. That's the sect that Netanyahu comes from. He claims his grandfather was one of the guys who was part of that whole movement, or his ancestor. But anyway, good questions. The other thing is the EU just is sanctioning now. EU, Canada, Australia now sanctioning Ben Gvir and Smotrich because they are openly calling for like the starvation of Gaza. Here's that headline, and the response to that which is pretty great, is that Ben Gvir Smotrich, who is the finance minister for Israel, is telling the Israeli banks to not obey the EU sanctions and basically just ignore all the sanctions and continue operating like F the EU, F Canada, like all those guys. And so this is a pretty incredible development when you consider that David Ben-Gurion in 1962 said that the UN would become the mechanism that Israel would use to establish the Supreme Court of Mankind in Jerusalem. He foresaw a one world government where the Soviet Union would collapse, the U.S. economy would be hollowed out and become a shell of itself, and basically humanity would become subservient to a one world government that created peace in the world, with that throne of power being in Jerusalem. And I mean, I have a screenshot of what that interview. The interview was published. Actually, it was republished by the Jewish Telegraphic Agency right here. Right here. Jewish Telegraph Agency. Boom. Ben Gvir, OK Magazine, January 4th, 1962. In Jerusalem, quote, the United Nations, a truly United Nations, will build a shrine of the prophets to serve at the federated union of all continents. This will be the seat of the Supreme Court of Mankind to settle all controversies among the federated continents, as prophesied by Isaiah. Higher education will be the right of every person in the world. A pill to prevent pregnancy will slow down the explosive natural increase in China and India. And by 1987, the average lifespan of man will reach 100 years. Western and Eastern Europe will become a federation of autonomous states, having a socialist and democratic regime. With the exception of the USSR as a federated Eurasian state, all other continents will become united in a world alliance, as those at whose disposal will be an international police force. All armies will be abolished, and there will be no more wars. And then he goes on to explain how the Soviet Union will collapse. The U.S. economy will become a welfare state. He says, We will the U.S. will be transformed into a welfare state with a planned economy. I mean, he's explaining exactly what has happened, everything that's happened in 1962. He's telling you this is what's going to happen, and he said it's going to happen by 1987. The Cold War will end around 1987. The Soviet Union collapsed by 1987. They knew it was going to happen. 1991 is when it actually happened. So it's now you have the UN is actually being turned against Israel, whereas Ben Gurion is describing the UN being used by Israel to establish a one world government. It's an interesting dynamic. And remember, the UN's the one who did the partition plan of Palestine in 1947 and created Israel. So for those who think the UN and Israel have always been at odds, that's not true at all. The UN created Israel in 1947. Am I frozen?
No. I was trying to see that and I can't see it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you reading it? Yeah, I was trying to be. I'll send you this.
Yeah, you can keep going.
This is something that I've seen screenshots of, like the actual article, like in the magazine, like people scans. It's just really low resolution. So I went and I used ChatGPT to find the original high definition article, and I found that the Jewish Telegraphic Agency had copy pasted it.
Established in 1917. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
By the way, Brian Murphy in the chat asked if you could post a link
to this. Yes, I will. Let me go find that. But yeah. I mean, there's stuff to talk about with Russia and Ukraine and all that. But I don't know if that is Ash in the.
No, you got. She'll be coming on tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't mean to take her spot. Let's see. Well, if that's the case,
hold on. Hang on. Before you get into Russia, let's go ahead and hit our next sponsor for the show, and then I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah,
folks. BadlandsCrypto.com has partnered with BlocktrustIRA to offer secure paths to convert your IRA or cash to cryptocurrency. The Patriots at BlocktrustIRA offer real managed accounts with revolutionary AI Animus technology that navigates the market with computer-based precision, reducing the risk of volatile cryptocurrency market. Animus AI technology was named the #1 crypto trading strategy in the world in 2023 by Bitcoin Magazine. Whether you have a retirement like a 401k or IRA, or just cash savings sitting around in a bank making you little to no interest, with best-in-class military-grade technology, BlocktrustIRA's clients are 100% insured for up to $200 million. In fact, at BadlandsCrypto.com, they are so confident in their ability to help you succeed that for a limited time, they're offering up to $2,500 bonus in crypto when you open an account. Visit BadlandsCrypto.com and learn more about the best-performing asset of the decade. Again, that's BadlandsCrypto.com. All right, I'll hand it back over to you and take it away.
All right, so we have the Ukrainian terrorist attack on energy company thwarted, according to the FSB. A young man was recruited by Kiev to set off an explosion at an administrative building, the agency has said. Russian Federal Security Services service operatives have thwarted a Ukrainian terrorist attack in Krasnodar region in southern Russia, the agency has said. A man who was recruited by Kiev was detained for planning to set off an explosion at an administrative building of an energy company in the region, the FSB said in a statement on Tuesday. According to the agency, the suspect in his early 20s was approached by Ukrainian intelligence services via WhatsApp this February. His initial tasks included taking photographs of military facilities and collecting information on the movement of the Russian Black Fleet Sea Fleet vessels. It said the man was later told to collect an improvised explosive device weighing 2.5 kilograms from a stash in order to commit a terrorist act in public space. The statement read, he was apprehended by FSB officers while on his way to pick up the bomb. That coincides with, that's from today's news. You have Russia, the Kremlin just confirmed right after we went live, Russia confirmed strikes on defense industry in Kiev. Moscow has hit missile, aircraft, tank, and shipbuilding facilities in the Ukrainian capital. The defense ministry has said the Russian military has carried out several long-range strikes on military industrial targets in Ukraine's capital, Kiev. The defense ministry in Moscow has said. In a statement on Tuesday, the ministry said its forces launched a group attack using high-precision missiles and assault drones against several defense-related targets, including aircraft, missile, armor, and shipbuilding industrial facilities in Kiev. Russia also attacked command centers, troop deployment sites, weapon and equipment storage hubs, military airfield infrastructure, ammunition warehouses, and fuel depots, the officials added. The goal of the strike has been accomplished. All designated targets have been hit. There was a hilarious story about Greta Thunberg. We don't really need to talk about that. That's not that was pretty funny. So here's the Mali story that I was talking about, because this is related to Russia. Wagner PMC, paramilitary, a private military company, announces withdrawal from African nation. The Russian private military company said its fighters have completed their mission in Mali and are returning home. Russian private military company PMC Wagner Group announced the end of its mission in Mali on Thursday, saying its fighters have completed their objectives and are returning home. Wagner operatives have reportedly been active there since 2021, when the West African countries' transitional authorities turned to the group for support following a coup and a surge in attacks by Tuareg rebels and al-Qaeda-linked militants. For 3.5 years, the musicians fought with shoulder to shoulder with the people of Mali against terrorism, Wagner said, using the informal name for its contractors. We eliminated thousands of militants and their commanders who had terrorized the civilian population for years. The group added that it helped Malian patriots build a strong and disciplined army capable of defending its land, and claimed that all regional capitals had been returned to the control of the legitimate authorities. Wagner declared that the mission is complete. Wagner PMC is returning home. Previously, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov had confirmed that the Mali government had indeed asked Wagner to help back in 2021, and has since also been receiving official military support from Russia. In April, he reiterated Moscow's commitment to support the alliance of Sahel states, AES, comprising Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, by helping build joint armed forces, training personnel, and supplying weapons. Wagner's withdrawal comes amid accusations by Malian and Russian officials that Ukrainian military agents have been aiding jihadist groups in the region. Earlier this week, the Malian outlet Bamada reported that foreign troops had recovered Ukrainian drones and documents from vehicles used by JNIM, an al-Qaeda affiliate. And here's that story. Here, Ukraine coordinating, this is from June 6th, Ukraine coordinating jihadist attacks in Mali. So Ukrainian military instructors are training and arming al-Qaeda-linked militants in Mali. According to local outlet Bamada, jihadist groups in the West African country have been waging a deadly insurgency against authorities for more than a decade. The discovery was made during recent operations by the Malian armed forces following renewed attacks by JNIM jihadist group. Bamada has reported JNIM fighters reportedly attacked security posts in Sirikorola and Tanagbogo in Mali's southwestern Kolokoro region on May 30th. According to the outlet, Fama forces repelled the assault, seizing weapons, documents, and equipment days after ambushing the militants near Jangu Bambara in the Safara region, where they were trapped while attempting to flee across a river. I want to jump to this part. In a car abandoned by the attackers, Malian soldiers found a phone containing photos of Ukrainian security service documents, as well as a drone bearing Ukrainian writing, Bamada said in a report published earlier this week. A preliminary investigation by the Malian military shows that the FPV drones were delivered to Mali via Mauritania by Ukrainian military instructors linked to Azawad fighters. It is highly likely that the Tuaregs, in turn, are sharing this equipment with JNIM as part of their alliance, it said. And the Tuaregs are the guys, that video that came out last August of like the 40 dead Wagner guys, and there was the Tuareg guy walking around like shooting them all. One of the Wagner guys jumps up with a rock and tries to attack him and then gets shot. That's the Tuareg rebels. And so the accusation has been that the Tuaregs, the JNIM, all of these people are linked to al-Qaeda and ISIS. They're being funded by Ukraine. They're being funded by France. They're being funded by all of the special interests who are losing their access to the resources in the Sahel region, which is primarily gold and oil. This is all, I think, connected to the idea of Netanyahu funding and arming ISIS in Gaza, but also, this new ISIS al-Qaeda jihadi being the president of Syria and being treated as a totally legitimate statesman. I think we're seeing like ISIS get this whitewashing where the Republican Party is going to have to put on its best face and smile at the camera and say ISIS are actually the good guys, because that's the direction that we're headed in. And Yeah, I mean, there's stories from 2016 of the IDF leaders saying they were asked, why are you providing medical support to an Al-Qaeda fighter who was injured in Syria? And his response was, last time I checked, Al-Qaeda's never attacked Israel. So why wouldn't we help them if they're fighting Assad? And if you go ask ChatGPT. I defy any of you to go ask ChatGPT, has ISIS ever attacked Israel? Just go ask him that. Go ask him if Al-Qaeda has ever attacked Israel. And you will find in both cases, the answer is no. The two most notorious like jihadi groups in the world who have attacked the United States on 9/11 have never attacked the state of Israel, despite operating in their direct vicinity. I think it's very notable. And it's because they were created by Mossad, the CIA, Five Eyes, MI6. And then now go back and look at all of these influencers who are pushing this rhetoric about Al-Qaeda, coming to get you at your home in the United States, and how we should all be afraid of Al-Qaeda, and we can't trust the Qataris, and we can't trust the Saudis, and we can't trust the Emiratis because they're Arabs, and Al-Qaeda are Arabs, and Islam is not compatible with the West. That's the talking point. And while there might be truth to that in terms of integration, like we don't want to integrate with Islam, we don't want to integrate with the Muslim world, we certainly can be partners with them. And I think they've proven that they are willing to invest money in our economy, and we can trade with them and work with them to stabilize geopolitics. So I think we'll kind of rest it there.
That's fascinating, man.
Yeah, dude, the web is just so vast, and it's like watching it all kind of come together is and then last night, since we have a minute, that guy that I always talk about, Mogilevich, share my screen one more time. Yep. This guy right here, I talk about him where he is right here. Mogilevich, he's the leader of the Rising Sun, Ukrainian Jewish mafia. One of his lieutenants, Alexander Cherchenov, was installed by the CIA as the acting interim president after the Maidan coup in 2014. He was like president for like 6 months before Poroshenko came in. I learned that Robert Maxwell went to the Israeli government in the 1988 and said, hey, I have this investment opportunity that we're going to bring $100 million worth of investment into the Israeli economy, which was deeply struggling at the time. It was not in good shape. And we're going to basically supercharge the Israeli economy with a $100 million investment. That $100 million investment was coming from Mogilevich, who had made all that money trafficking kids, trafficking women, trafficking guns, providing all the ecstasy or most of the ecstasy that the Gambino crime family was selling in New York. He was their number one drug supplier. And the reason that he was doing this is because the Soviet Union was collapsing, and he was trying to get his money out of Russia, out of the Soviet Union, Ukraine primarily. And so Robert Maxwell got him an Israeli passport, brought him over to Israel, told him that the banking regulations there would allow him to launder the money by investing it in the Israeli economy, launder the money through Israeli banks, and then you can send that money to Cyprus, to the Cayman Islands, to Switzerland, and then park it, wherever you need to park it finally, but it'll be clean at that point. They won't be able to trace it back to child trafficking in Ukraine because you've cleaned it through the Israeli economy. And then fast forward 10 years to 1999, and you had this panic, this major panic. Whitney Webb wrote a pretty great article in July of 2020 about this. Major panic in Russia. The Rising Sun, once again, was trying to get its money out of Moscow because they continued to operate in Russia even after the Soviet Union collapsed. And the panic that the people that were helping them get the money out was Kroll Associates. Jules Kroll, the guy we just talked about earlier, he was one of the people helping Mogilevich and helping these other people get their money out of Moscow. And the reason they were panicking, this was 1999 and 2000, is because Putin was coming into power, and they knew Putin was going to come after them, and Putin did come after them. And so they were panicking to move all their money out of these Russian banks and get them offshore. And Kroll Associates, which is like the CIA of Wall Street, right, ran all the intelligence, got the intelligence reports, and helped them move that money, allegedly, out of Moscow and overseas. And that was because they were afraid of Vladimir Putin.
Wow. All right. Is that
I think that's it. Yeah, I think we can hit rants now. But yeah, the point is that that dude Mogilevich, Alexander Turchinov, was arrested. The guy that I showed right above him. This guy was arrested in 2020. Arrested in 2010 because he worked for Ukrainian intelligence, and he was arrested in 2010 because he went into their office and destroyed all the files they had on Mogilevich. And so he was arrested in 2010 for that. And then he was installed as the president of Ukraine by the CIA in 2014.
Wow.
I mean, so it's like you got Kroll Associates, Mogilevich, Robert Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein. All of this stuff is connected, and then it comes back to Ukraine. It comes back to Putin. It comes back to all the stuff that we're dealing with right now.
Folks, if you want more, Wednesday, 12 p.m. 12 p.m. on Wednesday, Breaking History with Matt, Eric, and Gordon. Great show. And
2 o'clock on Friday for the like for me just to do that, but for like 2 hours. I may not be on the show tomorrow because I have something else I'm doing, but the thing I'm doing might really lead to a really exciting announcement that I'll just tease that for now. So I'm probably not going to be on the show tomorrow unless we can figure out a pre-record between now and then. It doesn't sound like our schedules are aligning though. So, but maybe a big announcement after tomorrow.
Heck yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into some Rumble rants here. Starting out, C. Meadows. Did you see that Tom Homan clip about the California raids are not the typical raids? These were about money laundering. And since we got a little bit of time, let's go ahead and play that.
Were there public safety threats in the fashion district and at that Home Depot in these raids we've seen?
Yeah, and that's what no one's talking about. The fashion district wasn't an immigration raid. It was the service of 3 criminal warrants at locations based on a large criminal conspiracy that ICE is investigating. That has to do with money laundering, tax evasion, and customs fraud, where a company underdeclared over $80 million in goods, failed to pay $17 million in fees, and it's part of an overall conspiracy on numerous businesses that they believe that some of this money is being laundered in Mexico and Colombia to fund cartel activity. So this was a criminal investigation that they all responded to in the beginning. That's how it all started. But the facts never got out. Even though we put the facts out, the media didn't cover it. They just said immigration raids, we're separating with families and all the negative information we hear all the time. We took a lot of bad people off the street last couple of days. A Vietnamese national that attended a graduation party was kicked out and came back and killed 2 young people, two young Americans. We arrested a child predator. We arrested someone for sexual misconduct. Someone arrested for committed armed robbery. We arrested numerous gang members. What ICE did the last couple of days is make Los Angeles safer by taking public safety threats off the street.
Man, he is straight out of Central Casting. I love that guy. Oh man. Interesting part of the story that you don't get from the mainstream, that this was, a part of a larger criminal enterprise that was being investigated. And of course, there's a lot of corruption in that regard. We've done a lot of this with COVID, with the Prop 90, what's the proposition? Prop 40, 47, 49, where you can steal up to $999 in California and not be detained.
Yeah.
So people have been taking this and there's a black market of goods in California where they just go in and take whatever they want and sell it on the black market. I wonder if it had anything to do with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Great thought.
Elizabeth 5326 says, great respect for you gentlemen and for this powerful platform. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Unatheoc, you're holding out on us, Canncon. Share the link and no penile attacks, please. I did share the link and there will be no penile attacks. That was an interesting conversation after yesterday's Alphas show where I had to describe that peen is a plural form of that word, and we'll just leave it at that.
And I just shared the in the chat. I'll put it in the comments too, but I just shared in the chat the link to that Jewish Telegraphic Agency article, which is an OK Magazine article from 1962. So,
okay, all right. Let's see. D-Max says, GoFundMe, put the link for the GoFundMe. I didn't think you put this on my chat yesterday, but here's the link, and thanks for your prayers. We could use it. Do you have a Give, Send, Go? You desperately need to Give, Send, Go. GoFundMe is not going to go over well with our audience. If you do, post the Give, Send, Go in the chat, and I will personally donate, and I will also post it up. Tattoo Teacher, great daily today, gentlemen. Thank you. Good to see you. Blow, Gabriel Blow. Appreciate you guys. The violent ones and their enablers will be humbled on stage, front and center. Yeah. Yep. Hopefully that's the crescendo. I hope.
Yep.
Hopeful Theorist. Love the idea of Badlands Research How-To episode. Hat tip Steph Asia. All hosts probably have research tricks, websites, etc. for a variety of topics. Will you get it done? Thanks. I mean, I've done.
It's a great thought. It's a great thought. And I mean, we actually did a panel at one of the GARTs, like how to research. We did that, I think, like a year ago. So it's been done in like in abbreviated formats. Dedicating a weekly show to it is probably, I don't know. We'd have to talk about it. And everyone like you said, everyone has their own strategy and their own methods. I demonstrate my strategy and methods for analysis on geopolitics. I try to be as transparent as I can in how I like parse stuff. I don't focus on the actuals. I don't focus on the reports of what's happening on the ground. I focus on how public figures are responding to narratives that are being fed by the media. And that's a lot more telling about their motivations and their intentions than anything else, I feel like.
Yeah. And also the landscape is evolving so fast in research, and it's going to change significantly over the next year, 2 years, 3 years with artificial intelligence, the ability to manipulate information, manipulate videos, images. There's going to be a lot of discernment in how we move forward here. And it's concerning, but that's going to do it for today, guys. Like I said earlier, if you have not yet done so, hit the thumbs up. Tune into Daily Herald this afternoon. John's going to be interviewing Representative McCormick. Should be a good interview. Ash and I don't know about Badlands Book Club because Ash is in the trial, so I'll have to text her and find out. But as of right now, I don't think we're actually doing Badlands Book Club because she won't be back in time. What's up?
Everyone should go follow Ash on X and like her, because she's like live tweeting as best she can. Like what's happening in the trial. Sorry, Ash, that we didn't get you on here today. Look forward to hearing what you have to report. She's coming on Book of Trump on Monday to do SEC regulations and
awesome.
like Chevron deference kind of stuff. So that'll be a good episode, I think.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. We will see you for sure tomorrow morning, possibly tonight for Badlands Book Club. I don't know, but either way, MPG Stewart just posted Ash's link. Go check out her threads on all of this. I think I commented the Thread Reader app so you guys can read it all in one. And we'll see you tomorrow. God bless.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.